Welcome to Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. This podcast is about the journey to a more sustainable future in order for us to be able to do our bit to achieve net zero. I'll be discussing a variety of topics with experts in their field in order to educate and increase our knowledge of clean energy, electric vehicles and the electric vehicle infrastructure. So whether you're an individual wanting to make a difference at home, a small business or a corporate, this podcast is just for you. So today I have Matt Adams with me, and he's the Transport Policy Manager at the REA. That is the Association for Renewable Energy and Clean Technology. Matt, I had to read that because I knew I'd forget it. Thank you for joining me.
No, thanks, Liz. Great to be here.
So I met you probably about 6 weeks ago when I came to an REA event in London, and I've got to say, it was so interesting. The day was just such interesting panels and interesting speakers, and really lovely to kind of be at the event. So well done on running that.
No, thanks. I mean, I think it was one of these things where I sort of designed the conference and Habit of Help as well. So you're both Mark Constable, who's the chair of our forum, and Claire Miller in particular, who most people know is Octopus EV and her own consulting company, Telligent. And between the two of them, they really helped me sort of find the sort of our proper REA niche. And I was particularly setting it up from the point of view of, I go to a lot of conferences and I quite often find the panels quite boring because they're all quite policy light, and they're all talking about things I do on day to day. So I never really get to learn much. So I wanted to make sure that I was learning something at every panel event as well. So what we tried to do is really cover off all the sort of areas we're working on, but make sure we're getting the right experts in the room as well, so that everyone was able to learn something. So we had the approach was to build up from assuming no one in the audience knows anything, and then helping them become sort of experts in the sort of 40 minutes, 50 minutes we gave them, which was, seemed to go down quite well. And obviously we then said that each of them had to finish with a sort of key takeaway that they wanted the audience to go away with, which I think went down quite well, so I'm quite pleased with that. But
You did, and there were some really, really good key takeaways as well. So for people who don't know what the REA does, well, do you know what? Let's just step back a second, because I always ask everybody who comes on the podcast about how you got to where you are now. So give us a little bit of your background and tell me why policy, because that's what you're involved in, why policy is something that kind of struck you as the way you wanted to move forwards.
Sure. So it's kind of like one of those things that's kind of accidental in some ways. So I did politics and international relations for my undergrad at Cardiff, and I sort of came out of that, and I'd done a policy module and I'd done an environmental module, and I found those really interesting. It's one of those classic things where you finish an undergrad and you go, I don't really know what I'm meant to do, and I didn't really feel I had enough specialism in any one area, but I knew that policy was really interesting, and I knew that really what I wanted to be able to do is influence policy, or have a say in how laws are made in the UK. So I thought that'd be a really interesting thing to do, and I managed to find a master's in public policy to go and do. So I went and did that. The environmental bit became increasingly sort of more at the top of my mind, and I ended up doing my dissertation on decarbonising public transport, of all things, because at the time I was really interested in the sort of local authority ambition with transport policy versus what we're seeing at a national level. So at the time, at a local level, where I am in Cambridge, we had one of these new elected mayors that come in for Cambridge and Peterborough, who had decided we were going to have a £500 million metro system that would be completely autonomous. You'd have a metro going every 2 minutes, completely electric, no driver, from 20 miles outside of town into the town centre. It'd be going all day, every day. And I thought, that's brilliant, fantastic idea. Why aren't we seeing this at a wider scale across the UK? And unfortunately, the whole piece never happened because it ended up being 5 times over the budget for the mayor. But the mayor's budget, and then he didn't get re-elected. So it was a bit of a shame on that point. But I did get to interview Anthony Brown, who obviously then went on to become the sort of minister for EVs. So that was quite interesting. I saw him a few weeks ago and sort of mentioned that I'd done this interview with him, and probably little did we know that either of us would be working so closely in policy, in transport policy and EVs of all things. But yeah.
Go on, sorry.
But yeah, so after that, I sort of, as you do, sort of just apply for hundreds of jobs, and I ended up going to the water sector, which was fantastic at Anglian Water. And what I was able to do there is I was only on a sort of short-term contract whilst someone else was on secondment, and what I was able to do there is really build up quite quickly a sort of understanding of how we respond, how we do things like consultations, how we talk to civil servants, how we talk to politicians and influence them as well. So I was representing them at the Water All Party Parliamentary Group. So that was really fantastic, gave me a really good base to go off. And then I ended up at Drax, where I sort of covered a number of different policy areas, which was, I think, really great actually, because I was doing anything from biomass, carbon capture, to hydrogen, heat pumps, electric vehicle charging, sustainability, all sorts. And what that did is give me a much broader level from which to look at the world, and give me a much better understanding of the whole energy system as well. And then I saw there was an advert at the REA for Transport Policy Manager, and I was the bit I always found most interesting at Drax was the EV policy I was working on. So I was like, I can do that full time, basically. Fantastic. And ended up here.
Fantastic. I was going to say, just going back a second, when you were saying about the electric buses in Cambridge, have they not actually got some?
Well,
Because
so we've got electric buses, but this was going to be a sort of metro system. So it was going to be like a sort of tram system going just.
But there is one, isn't there? Because so me and my husband we were in Cambridge last year, and we were on the outskirts, and I can't even remember where we were. Oh, we were staying in St Ives, and there's like a tramway that
Yes,
comes. It's
the
ever so
guided
weird.
busway. Yeah, so we had the guided busway already, and they spent loads and loads of money
That's
on it.
it.
And but then they said, oh well, we could go one better, and we could turn it completely electrify the whole thing, and basically make it more punctual, because at the time I think we were having something crazy like 100,000 cars going in and out of Cambridge each day, and there was huge congestion even with the busway. And so we needed another way to alleviate that traffic, essentially, was I think the idea behind it. But obviously it never happened, unfortunately.
Yeah, oh, shame. Because, like I say, the guided busway, that was kind of like, because it was like a bowling alley for buses,
Yeah,
except
yeah.
you don't knock anything down, of course. But kind of going down this, and I was just thinking that bus driver has actually got to concentrate all the time to keep just totally straight all the way down. It's kind of like really weird. But yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame that they couldn't kind of roll it. But if these things are so expensive, it's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I think they ended up realizing that they had to dig a lot of tunnels, and the tunnel digging was the bit that cost all the money, and it was going to cost hundreds of millions of pounds just to
Oh my
dig some
God.
holes, in the ground. And it's a bit more than that, but yeah.
So let's go and move on to talking about what the REA does. So you've kind of talked a little bit about the event that I was at, but what is the kind of the reason for the REA? Why did it start, and what does it actually do?
Sure. So I mean, we formed like very early on in the sort of early 2000s or early noughties, and I suppose at the time, I mean, bear in mind, I think I was probably about 4 at the time, but
You're only a
it's
young pup, aren't you?
exactly. But at the time there was this growing shift towards renewable energy, and I think New Labour were particularly interested in some of the stuff going on biomass, but also solar, I believe. The REA formed as a sort of way of bringing together all these actors from bioenergy side, solar side, and onshore wind as well, and were then able to bring together a much better understanding of everything going on in the energy system as a whole. Because you had all these members from different parts of the renewable sector, and our aim even back then was to increase the renewable generation on the system to a point where it was completely net zero. And today, I mean, we've got about 500 members across, so we're the largest and oldest renewable energy trade association in the country, and we cover 11 different technology areas. We've got 11 different forums at the moment, covering lots of different technology areas. So, bioenergy is one, but we also do things like agriculture, bioresources, hydrogen a little bit, green gas, so things like ammonia and that kind of things, low carbon transport fuels, and then electric vehicle charging, which we started in 2016, I believe, and then solar and energy storage, green finance, lots of areas now, which is fantastic because, as I say, what we tend to do at the REA is, because the policy, we've got about 10 policy experts, and then our CEO as well, Nina, and along with public affairs, events, etc. But what we're able to do is, because we all come from sort of energy backgrounds normally before, we've got this kind of wider understanding of the energy system as a whole, and that and we also talk to our colleagues and people from other forums as well. What that does is we're able to have a much better understanding of what's going on across the energy system, and rather than being quite narrow about it, we're able to bring a much bigger, wider insight into what's going on. And we've got lots of, well, not friends, but lots of contacts in, no, friends is the wrong word, but lots of friends in government and civil service, because we've been around so long. So we're able to get meetings with relevant government departments very quickly, and able to resolve a lot of issues that members have as a result. So whether that's something like a grid connection issue or a particular barrier to charge point installation, for example, we're able to very quickly convene meetings and sort of explain why these things are an issue, and make suggestions into how they could be changed and made better. Because what we like to do at the REA, instead of just complaining and saying this is an issue, which a lot of people do and a lot of other trade associations do as well, as we actually have solutions in place as well when we come to those discussions, which I think the government particularly quite appreciate, I think, because it makes their life a lot easier. But I mean, today, so we've got 11 different forums. The REV one that I sort of help run is one of the biggest. It's got about 100 members at the moment. And that's a very broad church. So we've got charge point operators, but we've also got local authorities, charge point manufacturers, installers, a lot of people on the software side, as you saw at the conference. So particularly energy management systems, telematics data, guys like Dynamon, who can analyze your fleet and understand which type of vehicle you need to buy, how many charge points you need, which routes you can, which routes can be electrified, which can't. Lots of interesting stuff, and a lot on roaming as well, which is obviously going to become really important over the next few years. And obviously we'd probably like to see something go towards more of a European or Australian model of roaming, where you've got almost universal roaming across the UK, as that seems to make a lot more sense from a consumer perspective, at least. I mean, I know there are reasons why we're not doing that at the moment, but from a consumer perspective, I don't see that not happening, to be honest. So, very broad church, and I've got quite a few consultancies as well, and even green finance and legal institutions and insurance brokers. So, as I say, it means we've got a really great understanding of what's going on across the whole sector, and really it gives me keeps me very busy. But
I can imagine. It's a really busy time, because I kind of see lots of things going on. Meetings of variety of different people going to different forums. So I know you've got so the EV forum, it's split into a variety of subsections as well, isn't it?
it is, yeah. So sorry, of course, yeah. So I think we're about to set up our 6th working group very soon. So at the moment we've got a HGV and commercial fleet working group that's aiming to produce a report targeted at fleet managers, and that report's essentially enabling fleet managers to become more of an expert in the energy side, but also give them a step-by-step guide on how to approach electrifying a fleet, and provide a sort of proof to a decision maker in the business, and say, look, here's how we do it, here's who we need to speak to at each step of the journey, can I go and start doing it? Which we hope will be really useful. But then we've got three others that are live at the moment. So one is, as you saw at the conference, alternative based charging. So for anyone that doesn't know, alternative based charging, or ABC, is essentially anywhere you charge that isn't a public charge point or a workplace or driveway. So, for example, maybe it's driveway sharing where you're parking on someone else's. Maybe it's a cross pavement solution, like a gully, for example, or a cape or channel system. Or it can be something like charging as a service or battery as a service, or even sort of temporary portable charging units that can be put in while you're waiting for a grid connection. Those kind of things that are really important but aren't really discussed very much. And I mean, I think yeah, you had Joel on the other day, didn't you? Your co-charger. I mean, yeah, I didn't know this, but I think you said that he's got the second largest charging network in the UK with 20,000 charge points.
Yes.
And again, that's and that's driveway sharing, and that's really important. But again, it's not something that gets much limelight or attention normally. So, what we were aiming to do with that group is really just raise awareness for it and try and give them more of a platform and policy as well. So, particularly thinking how can government support these different technology options, as they're all going to be very important going forward. But yeah, we've also got a cross-pavement working group specialising in quite a growing, interesting subsection of the market. So cross-pavement, so yeah, your pavement channels, your overhead arms, and your sort of underground charge points, like Trojan, for example. So
Yes.
yeah, it's really interesting. So yeah, that's really interesting. We're particularly interested there in breaking down the policy barriers, and we've been helping OTEV at the moment with the grant that's just come out for cross pavement solutions, and the accompanying guidance, which we think will be out quite shortly. So yeah, we're really pleased with that, and then lastly, a vehicle to grid forum as well, working group. So Claire Miller very kindly helps me with that, and really the objective there is to promote understanding of vehicle to grid, but also bring the right industry people to DESNZ, who are sort of in charge of vehicle to grid policy in the UK, and help them understand what the barriers are at the moment to wider adoption of vehicle to grids, and promoting it even for public charging, which we don't see at the moment, but we would love to see in future. And we were hoping at some point to do some sort of trip to Utrecht, do a study trip and understand how public vehicle to grid has worked there, because it's worked very well there.
Oh, they've already rolled it out in Utrecht.
They've already rolled it out, so yeah, they're one step ahead of us, as a lot of countries end up being for some parts of EV charging, unfortunately. But yeah, recently we've decided to launch two new groups. So interoperability, so thinking how can we make things easier for the consumer, so particularly through areas like roaming, but then also but also not just consumers but fleets as well. You obviously have to drive across and use the entire charging network, and you don't want to be stuck with 5 different RFD cards or all the rest. And then cybersecurity, because that's something that is becoming an increasing issue and problem, and will affect all of our members in some way, because a lot of them are software but a lot of them are also hardware, but need their software to be as secure as possible. And we're seeing that DESNZ are looking at consulting on new cybersecurity requirements for energy management system providers. So we really want to feed into that and make this working group the working group to go to for DESNZ, to help them develop their understanding of the sector and make sure that any policy that they do is most beneficial to the industry and easily deliverable as well.
There's a couple of areas, and I have asked kind of people who have had on here before to explain it a little bit. But can you explain a little bit so people understand what? I mean, I know it's Claire Miller's kind of forte, but can you explain a little bit about vehicle to grid so people can actually understand it a little bit?
Sure. So essentially, vehicle to grid is the ability, or vehicle to anything, or vehicle to X, maybe vehicle to anything or everything, is the ability to send power back from your car to either the grid, and then the grid would hopefully pay you for that at peak hours generally. So the idea with vehicle to grid is it helps take stress off the system and help manage the energy system at peak times. So we would expect people to plug in maybe at sort of 5 p.m. as soon as the kettles and TVs and things like that are going on, or maybe if it's World Cup season, as soon as it's half time and all the kettles and ovens are going on. So I think, if I remember correctly, for the last World Cup, when at half time there was a noticeable increase in energy across the country for all the England matches, because everyone was sitting down in front of the TV and needed a cup of tea or coffee or something to relax after what was probably a very stressful and awful first half of football. So yeah, basically vehicle to grid helps manage that energy demand on the system, and in theory you would probably get paid to do so, but you could also send that power back from your car to, say, a battery storage unit in your house, for example, so that then you're able to then basically power your devices in the house, so your fridge, freezer, etc., which obviously really useful as well. And really what vehicle to grid is going to do is change the way we think about cars, so they're a portable battery rather than a way of getting from A to B. And maybe one day we'll get to a point where if we get public vehicle to grid off the ground, you'll get a notification on your phone saying plug in now at St Thomas's Hospital and you'll get £50 for doing so for an hour or something like that. That could be the way that the future goes. That would be sort of slightly sci-fi, but dream scenario for vehicle to grid, I imagine. But so that's vehicle to grid in a nutshell.
I mean, it sounds the whole. I was talking to a friend about this. I mean, obviously, you know more than I do, and I was kind of saying, it's just basically an energy unit on wheels is a car, isn't it, these days?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and the fact that, because the stuff, the negative. I always talk about the negative side of the press, but if they actually recognised that this was possible, especially in times of crisis or need, or actually get people getting money back for having a vehicle, is amazing. I mean, my husband gets excited when we've made £1, from our renewable energy, because we've got solar panels and battery storage. He gets really excited about that one. Oh, we've made £1, or we made 70p today. But but actually we might laugh about it. But if you kind of have £1 each day or whatever it is, that's 30 quid in a month, isn't it?
Exactly. And then if you're also renting out your driveway, you could be making an extra £1,000 a year maybe, or maybe £4,000 if you've got an Uber driver or something that uses it regularly, for example. So it all adds up.
It could absolutely.
It'll be really interesting going forward, I think.
Yeah, like you say, the whole idea of co-charger, and I know there's kind of Mabula Ray are doing something with regards to workplace charging as well. So actually being able to share these devices and earn money, it's kind of, I hate the phrase, it's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it?
Exactly. And I think a lot of our cross payment members have a sharing option as well, so that, because I mean, the one thing with cross payment solutions that people criticize, probably wrongly, is the fact that you probably can't park by it every night, because you're not likely to have your own parking space, which is fair enough. But at the same time, you could be renting that out so that other people could reserve it, or hope to use it if no one else parks there, and make a bit of money off it as well. So that would be so there are ways to sort of turn that slight negative into a bit of a positive. But realistically, most people only need to charge once a week, 10 days.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Kind of like, even just thinking about buying an EV, people need to just recognise, work out how many miles do you actually do a week.
Exactly.
If you've got a driveway, it makes it so much easier. And if you've got a driveway and other people near you haven't got a driveway, then actually, because there might be times where you haven't got your car in the drive, or your car's not doing anything, you can just park it slightly down the road and let somebody use your drive so that they can charge, and you can make, get some money from that, and they get cheaper than public charging rates, don't they?
Well, no, that's it. They do much cheaper. So you're much closer to domestic tariff, which you save you a lot of money, and Yeah, so particularly if you're something like an Uber driver, it can save you an absolute fortune. But also give that person with a driveway or a bit of extra revenue coming in as well. So yeah,
Yeah,
works out for everyone.
absolutely. Everyone's, everyone's a winner, as
Exactly.
as the song says. You're probably too young to know that song. So, just explain again. You were saying about interoper. Oh God, I can't say it. Interoperability. You
Yeah, yeah.
see, I've got someone else's teeth in today. How does that? Is that to do with? Is that just solely to do with roaming then?
Well, it's not, but yeah, really, the working group we haven't decided the terms of reference yet. So we haven't had the first meeting, but I think it can be roaming, but it can also be things like just having the right cable to charge with. So, back in like 20, I think it was 2018, we did a paper, and I think on interoperability, and one of the things we probably discussed at the time was the fact you need all the different cable types to be able to charge. So, I mean, now we're seeing a decline in like the CHAdeMO cable, for example.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the most popular second-hand vehicle is probably the Nissan Leaf, which is only
Just
CHAdeMO.
yeah.
And so there's going to come a point where you got all of these Nissan Leafs on the road with people who are new to EVs, and they won't be able to charge anywhere, and they'll probably go, well, sod this, I'll go and buy a petrol car again. So it means I can actually, fill up wherever. So whether we're whether the solution is something like everyone has to have a CHAdeMO cable at every site. Problem is though, CHAdeMO generally charges that much slower. So if there's only one, you're gonna have
Yeah.
a big queue of Nissan Leafs and others. Or do you have a converter, a little adapter or something, so that people who have Nissan Leaf, who people who have a CHAdeMO car can plug into a CCS or Type 3 or whatever really easily. So yeah, that can all cover interoperability as well, basically.
Okay. That can, to be honest, that makes sense, doesn't it? To actually be able to have a It's like when you go abroad, and you actually have the different plug types, don't you? Kind of in Europe or America or wherever, and just being able to kind of utilize that kind of, put it onto the front of what your current
Yeah,
plug is, so that it just
exactly,
plugs in, and you know
exactly.
that it's going to be absolutely fine. So that bit kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and I think we're already seeing devices a bit like that. So I think last year there was a device that came out that basically allowed you to drive away if you felt you were in danger at a charge point, and it's like a little, basically like a little adapter you plug onto your cable, and it splits in two, so that the charge point cable itself isn't damaged, but also obviously you've got a little bit trailing your end. But yeah, the important bit is kept at the charge point and doesn't break it or damage it at all. But you're also able to get away and feel safe. So So if devices like that exist already, I don't see why we couldn't get like an adapter for a CHAdeMO or
Yeah,
something.
because do you know what? If we think about that, that bit's really important, isn't
Yeah.
it? Because there are sort of charge points which are more rural, or kind of people might have to charge late at night and things like
Mm,
that. So you do want to actually have something to help you feel safer if you have to
exactly.
do something like
Exactly.
that. So actually, I suppose to have something at like 11:30 at night that
Yeah.
goes into, kind of works with your cable, even if you do, like you say, if you have to drive off and the cable's
Mm.
hanging, still trailing behind you, but at least you've managed to release it. There should really be an
Exactly.
auto release on EVs anyway, shouldn't there?
Wow. Probably. Yeah. Yeah.
At some point. But
Mm.
that's a whole nother conversation, isn't
Yeah,
it? Really.
it is. Yeah, that's. I'm sure the car manufacturers will have things to say about that. But
Exactly. So if we talk about your how you work with government, then
mm,
so how does what you're talking about, the working groups?
yeah.
How do the working groups actually interact with government in order to influence policy in government and help educate them from the people that you've got in the working
Yeah,
groups?
so I think it's about being proactive in some sense. So, like, when we're setting these groups up, we quite often will invite the relevant government team in charge of the policy area to come to the first meeting, so that they can see what the terms of reference are, where the expertise are, what value they can bring to the conversation. And then quite often either they will then come to subsequent meetings. So we've had them at like our vehicle to grid meetings and some of our fleet meetings, and our cross pavement meeting, and I think every one so far but one. So either we do something like that, or we say we identify some key asks of government in these working groups, and then either I myself will go away and present them to the relevant government teams. So we catch up with both OZEV and DESNES. So I catch up with OZEV and DESNES on a monthly basis across all their teams, but I then also will catch up with individual teams as well on a sort of ad hoc basis when we need to. So if there is a particular issue that a working group has, so let's say it's fleet, and they want to understand how the Project Rapid's going, then I will generally be the one talking to the DFT and go, so when's that money coming from Project Rapid? Still not here yet. Okay. Any idea when it will be? Something like that is very simple, but it can also be something like Section 50 licenses being particularly problematic. When I came into the REA last year, we were just about to start a campaign around barriers to charge point delivery or installation, and so I took that over and turned it into a report that focused on first of all the energy demand across the country for public charging. So we understood where but we forecasted it out to 2030, and we worked with Field Dynamics to do that. We did some really excellent data and analytics, and what we did from that was to say, okay, so Birmingham, Glasgow, Peterborough, Sheffield are all going to have way higher charging demands in 2030 from public charging than they do today. So that's the first step. How do we get the energy to the charge point? We need the grid connection upgrades. We were able to sort of provide data as to where each DNA would need to do reinforcement realistically over the next 5-6 years, to a point where you expect in 2030 there to be about a third of all cars to be EVs. So it's quite a crucial point in the journey, and at the time that was the ZEV mandate target as well, but that's another story. The second chapter, we then said, okay, well, we've got the energy demand, and we know how to resolve that by improving the grid connections, but then we want to get all this charging demand that's going to be there. We need to make sure we've got enough charge points, and here are all the barriers to charge point installation at the moment. So we did Section 50s, 115s.
So that is the grid Section 50 is for grid connections then?
No. So Section 50 is street work licenses. So that's to do with like installing a charge point on a street, for example. So it's a separate piece. So so grid connection, resolve that by just get it in part getting the DNAs to work a bit quicker, but also improving the connections process. So at the moment it's quite complicated, and I think there's 5 DNOs at the moment, or 7. There's quite a few DNOs anyway. Quite a few DNOs at the moment. The number changes depending on which one's been brought by which other one. So I think there might now only be 4 or something. But each one will have their own connections process, which is really helpful if you're a charge point operator. All of whom will have slight different nuances of the process depending on who you speak to at the DNO. So that obviously then becomes more helpful, and that can take, and sometimes we did a grid connections APPG meeting recently, and some of the sites that we looked at weren't getting a connection for 10 years. So grid connections are a real issue, and that's one of the big areas that needs improvement, and the government are doing some work on that, to be fair to them, at the moment, which is great, and are making the process more simple, which is very welcome. But we said, okay, grid connections, just make the process simpler, make it quicker, fantastic. But then it's all these policy and regulatory barriers to charge point installation. So we covered all these things like permitted them, right? Section 50s, 115s, all these other things, and then traffic regulations, orders, all sorts. But we then said, okay, we've got the policy barriers, we've got the grid connections. what about skills? That's going to be the next big issue. So we looked a bit into skills, and we said we'd come and revisit that, and then we did. As you know from the conference, we launched a new skills report. But we then looked at utilisation and as well, and said, well, okay, let's say we've resolved all these other issues. We've now got all these charge points, but no one's using them because at the moment, ZapMap did some really good data last year on it. I think something like most charge points are only used about 13% of the time, which is mad, and it means that you might not get any return for like 5 or 7 years sometimes. So how that's possible, I don't know. But and so obviously it's really difficult for the charge point operators who are having to invest lots but not really get anything back for the first few years at least. So we said, well, obviously the way to improve that is to make them more accessible and easy to use from our perspective. So bring in some proper accessibility legislation to actually make it easier for wheelchair users to use charge points. There's about 5 million disabled people in the country, so be a big boost to charge point operators, you'd think. And then your vans as well, because vans can't charge in public because car parks aren't really built for vans, and they're much bigger, much longer, need a longer cable, need a longer bay, ideally a drive-through bay. We'd like to see some changes to that as well. So anyway, your question was, how do we influence policy? So we're in the process of making that report, and we sort of shared it with the relevant government teams at the time and said, look, we're going to publish this report. We want to work with you to achieve some of the outcomes, because we don't want to just publish a report. We actually want to make a difference. So we spoke to them about it, showed them what was going to be in there, and we started work on it before the report was even published. And then by the time we published it in July, there was already some commitment in place about what was going to happen. And then by November, we'd done a bit more work with them, and we saw the plan for drivers published, which ended up being really influential, and that it covered, I think, 5 or 6 different parts of charge point barriers, so along with misinformation. So as a result, we were able to get commitments on consultations for Section 50s, for permitted development rights, for streetworks licenses, and grid connection and grid connection issues as well. So I think our report was really fundamental in getting those changes going, because not only did we share it with the relevant government departments, but it was also passed, because we shared it early, it was also passed around a lot within government, and we know it arrived at number 10 at some point. Apparently, we were told, and then sort of my understanding was the sort of plan for drivers was sort of the idea for the plan for drivers sort of came from our report. It's what I've been told. Obviously I don't want to take too much credit for that, as it might not be 100% true, but that's what we were told. So obviously really pleased about that. So that's one way we like to work with government, is to start early, instead of just throwing something at them going, look, here are all the problems, why haven't you done something about this? It's, we're about to publish something, we'd like to work with you to resolve these issues, and be constructive, because the one thing you don't want to do is just shout at people, because at the end of the day, the civil servants are people as well, and they aren't necessarily experts or industry experts, and need a bit of guidance and stuff, because otherwise they're not going to know about these issues. So if you're actually constructive with them, it tends to be very receptive to what you say, because they want to make things better as well. So I think whether it's a policy report, whether it's just having meetings with them where they can talk to our members and hear issues. So we had a forum meeting recently with DESNZ, so Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, where we had about 30 members at the table, and DESNZ presented on proposed changes to the smart charging regulations from 2022, which at the time were quite difficult for quite a lot of the charging industry to because of the extensive changes to the regulations. But they were basically proposing some changes to make it easier, and they got a lot of really good feedback from our members that they then have taken away and I think incorporated into their consultation, which will be out quite shortly. So there's a few different ways you can work with government, either getting them along to meetings and so they can hear firsthand what the issues are, or whether it's producing a report and working with them to resolve the issues. There's a few different ways we can do it. But,
I mean, to me, that is a really good, constructive way to help support them, because, like you say, they're not expert. They're not all. Well, some of them are, obviously, but they're not all experts in kind of the job that they're in.
well, as I say,
You have got the experts in your working groups, haven't you?
Yeah, that's
and then
it.
you use that constructive feedback
That's it. I mean, I think, civil servants, they move around a lot between different departments, so they tend to get, it's kind of frustrating in some ways because sometimes they get really good at one area and they'll move on and start again somewhere else. Like, no, just getting to the point where it was really great, really really helpful. But a lot of them are also really young, so yeah, I end up talking to people like, in charge of policy areas, and they're younger than me, and it's amazing. But it also means you've got to really appreciate that they're because they're so young. They've probably only started recently, and yeah, therefore need that extra support and help as well from us. So yeah, we always try and make sure that when we speak to civil servants that it's as constructive and useful as possible. But we also speak to politicians quite a lot as well. So we're the secretariat for the EV All Party Parliamentary Group, which basically meets about once a quarter. And the way I've sort of set it, sort of structured it since I've been here, is to bring in industry experts for a specific issue each time. So quite a lot of APPGs end up being a talking shop where you get the same people around the table each time and nothing much changes. So I wanted to change that because I'm aware that that's not really the best way to get things done. So what we did is we said, okay, we had our first, the first meeting where we changed it, we had one on misinformation. We got Quentin Wilson there, along with, I think it was Nick Win, no, it was Quentin Wilson that came along to that and presented fair charges misinformation campaign, and along with well, at the time Claire Cullen as well from Fully Charged. So yeah, the Stop BS campaign. So yeah, we were able to get them in the room, give the MP some really useful understanding of what it is there, what the actual misinformation is, and what the actual answer is, what the truth is of the matter. And they found that really helpful, and then we're able to take it away and start fighting back against some of the stuff that was going out. But we also did one on grid connections, and we had Nick Windsor, who's the grid commissioner, electricity networks commissioner, come in, who was brilliant. And he'd just done a report for government on the transmission networks. He did a bit of an overview of that, but and sort of gave a better understanding to the parliamentarians of what grid connections are, how they work, and those kind of things. And then we got one of the motorway service providers, Moto, to come in and provide an understanding of what their grid connections process and how difficult it's been for them to get grid connections, even with Project Rapid in place. And then I was then able to do a little bit of an overview on an area that we've been campaigning on for quite a few years now, called way leaves. So that's basically getting permission to go over third-party land to put in a grid connection. So and that process, let me tell you, it's just that's a whole other episode, I think. But it can take years to get it through. So we desperately wanted some changes to that as well. So we were able to provide a lot of really useful information to all the politicians in the room about that. And then at the end of the meeting, they said, we really want to make a difference here, Matt. So can you go away and produce a short paper for us so we have all the information we need, and then we're going to go and bash some heads in government. And as kind of the message. So yeah, we were able to go away, produce a report, work with Moto and others, and then come back to them and say, look, here's all the information you need. And within an hour of giving them that paper, one of them had submitted a written question in the House of Lords, and we were able to get some answers into what was going on. It's fantastic. So
Oh wow! And that kind of I know it's not a quick turnaround,
not
but the fact
necessarily.
that you had you had some people that could do that
That's it.
working with you, that must be brilliant. I always talk about incremental changes to people, those little tiny little steps to move
That's
things forward.
Yeah, and I mean the APPG is not about us, because we've got to be like neutral as the secretariat. So what I do is make sure we get the right experts in the room and are resolving an issue each time, and it's not to benefit us necessarily, but it's to benefit the sector. So yeah, whether it was grid connections, whether it was, I mean, we did one on accessibility recently, or whatever else. I mean, really, it's the idea behind it is to make sure that we're resolving a different issue each quarter, or giving some more information to these politicians who are very good generalists, but don't have enough information about any one area and need that extra support and guidance. And so getting the right people in the room. And we did one on accessibility, and we got Kate Tyrrell to that, along with Motability as well, both the foundation and the operations team, to give a better insight into the Motability scheme and why PAS 1899 is so important, and why mandating it might be necessary at some point. All these things. And by the end of the meeting, half the politicians in the room were going, yeah, we should mandate PAS 1899. I'd never heard of it probably before that meeting, but we're like, yeah, they should. Mandating this is ridiculous. And again, we got 2 written questions about an hour after that meeting, again submitted in the House of Lords on accessibility. So yeah, it can make a lot of difference.
Fantastic. I mean, just like I say, I know these things take time. You know, like you said, so Project Rapid. So you said Project Rapid's taking quite a lot of time, didn't you? And that's kind of that's all to do with motorway services, like you were saying about Moto, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's about getting the grid connections for motorway service areas and some of the strategic road network as well. So maybe some A roads possibly down the line, so that they can put in. I think the government target was 5 rapid charge points by every motorway service area by 2023. Didn't happen. Right. But and obviously 5 is quite a small number if we're thinking that a third of all cars are going to be electric by 2030. So when we spoke to Moto, they were saying, well, some areas they've already got like 20, 30, 40, 50 charges, and they're already thinking about having to put more in. And so yeah, it's crazy. I don't know really how 5 is at all an appropriate number. And I know there was a round table recently with a lot of the industry in number 10 with a few of the secretaries of state, and they were talking mostly about Project Rapid and motorway service areas. I think there was a broad agreement that 5 probably isn't enough going forwards, but that we'll probably hit 5 by sometime this year, which is obviously a great start. But we probably need to go a lot further.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not particularly rapid, is it? It's not It's rapid by name, but not rapid by nature.
Yeah.
Oh goodness! Do you know what? You talked about the skills report, and that's quite an interesting thing to actually just go through quickly, I think.
Sure.
Because is that the most recent report you've had?
Yeah, so we published it literally last month, so luckily it's the most recent one. Actually, it's not even the most recent one, because we then published a report on Freeport East 2 weeks later.
Yes, I saw the one on Freeport East on your website this morning,
But the skills report was produced with a number of experts in the industry. So we used, basically, first of all, the skills report is basically aimed at covering the whole EV sector. So I've not read a skills report that covers anything more than one little subsector of a bigger sector. So I've seen quite a few on battery technicians. I've seen maybe a little bit on charge point operators, but I've not seen anything where we've put them all together. So we did motor manufacturers, distribution network operators, charge point operators, local authorities, software providers, and battery technicians as well. So we tried to cover the whole sector, and it ended up taking me far longer than I thought it would to write it, because when we produced that last report I mentioned earlier in July last year, I said, by the end of the year we'll have a skills report out to really hammer home some of these important points we raised in the first report. It took me far longer to research than I realised it would, and we ended up getting it out in April. But what we were able to do is use Curzon Consulting, who did some really good work for us, and they were able to interview a lot of the distribution network operators, but also the charge point operators, and get some really useful, unique data into what their recruitment issues were. So we saw that most charge point operators were saying that they were taking 3 months or longer to hire an electrician, and that's a long time. That's far longer than it should do. I mean, 3 months is, if we look at it from an office example, that's like director level sort of amount of time it would take to get someone from another company. So the fact it takes so long to recruit an electrician, it was quite worrying. And I remember when I first spoke to OZEB about it, they said, 3 months, that's pretty quick for us. I was like, Shouldn't be.
Oh God.
Shouldn't be. So yeah, that was a little worrying at times, and the same with distribution network operators as well. But this all comes off the back of the fact we've got a massive drop in people who are skilled and sort of with electrotechnical skills. So since 2018, we lost 20% of that workforce. So there's about 180,000 people left in the UK that have the right skills available. And if we see a 20% decline in 6 years, the fact is we're going to need, the demand is only increasing. So either they're going to have to work all day round every day, or we're going to have to get some more people in. And one of the things we looked at within the report as well was, what's the process like at the moment for training? One of the key issues we found was, even if you're fully trained in something like charge point installation, there's lots of different courses that all compete with each other from different organisations, and some are maybe better than others, some are industry endorsed, some aren't. But like we looked at two different job adverts, so it was quite a small sample size, but we looked at two different job adverts for charge point operators asking for installers. The weird thing was neither of them had the same qualifications, despite the requirements, despite the fact they were both asking someone to do the same thing. And so we sort of felt, how easy is it to navigate this landscape if you're someone who isn't interested in EVs normally, but has decided that's what they want to do, they want to retrain and go into that. How are you meant to navigate this, like this job landscape? So we said, okay, well, obviously this is an issue, but skills are an issue more widely as well. So we need to start from day one. So we need to start thinking about outreach to primary school level people, and we worked with Net Zero Evolution, who now have their Net Zero Heroes program in place that will do outreach to primary school children. Essentially what that will do is talk to primary school children about the job opportunities there are across the net zero sector as a whole. But with the EV sector, you could say, okay, well, do you want to do something like what I'm doing, sort of policy, or do you want to do electrical stuff? Do you want to be repairing EVs? Do you want to be installing charge points? What is it you're most interested in? And then sort of giving them an idea of the pathway they'd need to take to do that. But also at the same time, we're also conscious that you don't want to narrow those people's opportunities too much and say, right, you're 11 years old, you need to immediately go for. You do need to immediately go for like I don't know, triple science, physics, chemistry, biology, and then specialize in physics and engineering at A level, and then go and do a degree in engineering or a BTEC or a technical level, T level, or whatever they're called now. In the subject, and it's kind of worrying in a way because we're already narrowing people's opportunities quite a lot, even at a young age. If we're saying, okay, you definitely go into the net zero sector, and of course you're 11 years old, so you know exactly what you want to do in life, so you only do this. So you're also really conscious of that and don't want to like narrow people's job opportunities too much, but also just make them aware of the opportunities that are available, really. So that's step one. And then step two is, okay, generally sort of sixth form or colleges have good courses already in place, but post 19 there's kind of a gap. So at the moment the government have something called like Institutes for Technology, which essentially work in a basically produce a lot of STEM courses, which is great, but none of them are really focused specific. It's not easy to, if you're not minded to it, to know that these particular courses are good if you want to go into a net zero role, because a lot of people now are thinking, well, I want to work in something that's good for the environment, for the planet, and you've got all of this enthusiasm coming from the sort of next generation, but there's no obvious way to do that. And bearing in mind this is a TikTok generation who has an attention span of 10 seconds, you've got to like make something really clear and obvious to get it to stick, right? So we thought, instead of having like 23 institutes for technology that are dotted around on the outskirts of the countryside, it would be easier to have sort of technical colleges or what we call centres of excellence for net zero skills, so much more obvious, in existing schools and colleges where they would be given extra funding to bring in new equipment that the pupils could use as well, but maybe like in the summer you could open up these centres for excellence or to do courses or after hours or something like that. So different ways you can do it, because obviously then you then get into like technicalities around like people of a certain age being in schools and things like that, so you got to like, be a bit careful, but the idea with centres of excellence was basically to put it at a more local level and then have local employers sponsoring courses so that at the end of the day that local employer could then pick the 5 best people from the course or something and bring them in and then have a steady work stream. And realistically in this sort of electrotechnical sector as a whole, people generally change jobs every 2-3 years. They'll get a good understanding of what they're doing, and then they can look elsewhere and go, oh well, I can be paid 10 grand more if I go there to do the same thing or whatever else, because there's a growing demand for it every day and people are willing to pay more for that skill. So that then feeds into the wider sector as a whole and resolves the skill gap, full stop, which is great. But let's say that these are both things that will take a while to do. So what can we do now? So we're thinking upskilling and reskilling. The government have some courses already, which are reasonably good, but they're not necessarily net zero focused. So for some of them are like, okay, well you can take a course in boiler repair, which is great, but you're going to have to invest in more training for them in 5-10 years time to become heat pump. Why not just do both now to do it? Or so things like that really. So in Wales they had a quite a really interesting scheme actually, where if you're below a median income or been unemployed for more than 6 months, you're able to access free courses paid for by the Welsh government to retrain in a sort of net zero role that will be future proofed. So whether that's solar panel installation, charge point installation, or whatever else, there is a future proofed course out there for you that you can do and then hopefully find work in if you can navigate the insane recruitment landscape. So so we thought upskilling or reskilling through government support really important, but also getting companies to upskill their existing workforce. So we worked with Trojan Energy gives a really good example where they'd got one of their charge point installers from a position where they were merely a fruit machine guy going around repairing fruit machines, basically in pubs. And I was like, well, why would you ever leave that job? It's amazing. You can go and live in a pub all day and also play with gambling machines. Fantastic. It's my idea of heaven. But
So,
brilliant. But nonetheless, he decided to retrain and become a charge point installer. But because he had that mindset where he understood electrical components and that kind of thing, he was able to, that they trained him up to become a charge point installer. So if more companies can do that, that'd be fantastic. And in our survey, we did see that a lot of charge point operators are already doing some really good upskilling programs, but we're also already working with schools and colleges to promote the sector and also provide bespoke courses. So that's fantastic, and we'd obviously love to see more of that. And one of our most recent members, Electrosure, are a charge point installer company, and they've now got a program with one of their local colleges I think it's in Hertfordshire, bespoke course to help train up people to then bring into their company. It's brilliant. So we'd love to see more of that across the country, but also get these companies to shout about it, because they're not, from what I can see, and it'd be great if we saw much more stuff on LinkedIn about the upskilling and stuff they're doing with colleges and schools, because although I understand it's probably commercial reasons why they're not shouting about it, actually raising awareness for it would be a really good thing. That was sort of the skills report as a summary, and the recommendations: outreach, sense of excellence, more upskilling, better reskilling programs in the UK.
and I was going to say, to be honest, if you think about over the coming years, there is going to be a big move from people working for fossil fuel companies, aren't there? Unless the fossil fuel companies, you would assume that they're going to diversify at some point. So theoretically, even if they do diversify and either way, there are going to be people moving from job jobs, from different sectors, aren't they? From one sector to the
Definitely,
other,
definitely.
and there are transferable skills, but it's about upgrading those, like you say, upskilling those transferable skills, isn't it?
Definitely, but I think you'll also see quite a few, more of a caveat, but we'll see probably quite a few engineers actually moving into the sort of fossil fuel sector because a lot of them will be investing in carbon capture and storage and that side, and you'll need a lot of really skilled engineers to go and install and deliver that. So it'll also be probably a bit of a shift, but you get quite a few people going towards that sector as well to
Okay.
because carbon capture will be obviously really beneficial in a lot of ways, but yeah, we'll also keep the fossil fuel companies going a bit longer.
Yeah, they'll eke it out as long as they possibly can, won't they? But that's a whole other story as well, a whole other
Yeah,
conversation. Do you know, it's been really interesting talking to you, Matt. The stuff that you're doing is just really, really good for REA. Can we just finish off, because you're also on the editorial board you're an editorial board member at Transport and Energy, aren't you? Which I know
yeah.
is quite a new thing. Do you want to just, because I've interviewed Alec Peachy on here before.
Mm.
Do you want to just kind of give little bit of an overview about what that aims to do? Kind of you getting on
Sure,
that.
sure. So I mean, yeah, transport and energy, it's all about promoting anything in anything that does is bringing in renewable energy to the transport sector really,
Mhm.
and obviously it's very technology agnostic as well, much like the REA. So from that point of view, it's a great fit because I also look after some of our low carbon fuels work, and I have to keep an eye on hydrogen as well, but don't tell anyone. And one of the things. That's up and coming will be the conference in November, and our last sort of editorial board meeting, we spoke about what the plans for the conference were, and obviously you've seen some of the confirmed speakers over the last few days announced. So yeah, we'll be doing some really exciting stuff actually that's quite unique this year for the conference. So which is a shame really because I thought my conference would be the best one this year, but it looks like it might be the Transport and Energy one. But yeah, there's some really good stuff happening at the conference. So we'll be doing a panel with all the trade bodies that I think was announced the other day. So that'll be really interesting. So it'll be ourselves, the ENA, Charge UK, and as well. So yeah, that'll be quite interesting to work out what the sort of key things are we can all agree on, and yeah, hopefully move forward as well. So I think what Transport and Energy does really well is provide a platform to make things happen. I know Alex said that last year at the conference as well. So yeah, hopefully it'll provide a good platform to really make a difference and start moving the needle forwards. Is the hope of the conference, and I think we'll probably be able to do that quite a lot this year with the people we'll get in the room and the speakers. But I don't know what's been announced and what hasn't, so I don't want to say too much just in case.
Well,
But
we shall watch this space then, won't
yeah,
we?
yeah, exactly.
So just to finish then. So for anybody who is interested, so the website, I'll put all the details in the show notes anyway. But the website is r-e-a.net.
Yeah,
Matt, you're on LinkedIn quite a lot anyway, aren't you? So if
yeah.
anybody wants to contact you, is that the best place to find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn, or they can email me. All my details are on the REA website as well. But yeah, LinkedIn's great. I'm probably one of the more active people in the REA on LinkedIn. So feel free to message me about EVs. But equally, if you want to join on any of our other forums, solar, energy storage, low carbon fuels, whatever, very happy to talk to you as well and introduce you to my relevant colleagues that'll be.
And I will be full circle. Will be my business will be joining very soon. So
Fantastic.
yes,
Well,
I like I say, I was over the moon at the last event that you had. It was so interesting. So if anybody gets an opportunity to go to any REA events, I would definitely recommend them.
Well, we've got one coming up next month. Actually, we've got the annual British Renewable Energy Awards coming up in 13th of June, and all the nominees have now been announced on our website. So there's quite a few award categories. I think there's about 100 companies up for nomination this year, which is fantastic. And we'll probably get 200 to 300 people in a nice 5-star hotel in central London and Park Lane to celebrate their achievements through the year. And yeah, I went last year for the first time, and The thing I'm just going to say now is I don't know who's won, so please don't ask me. I only saw it about 10
This
minutes
might actually
before.
go out live after that's been on, I'm afraid.
Oh,
But
okay,
yeah,
that's
everybody,
good
yeah,
then.
check it on their website. I'm sure you'll see. But listen, Matt, thank you ever so much. It's been really lovely to talk to you. So interesting, and I'm sure we'll carry on conversations very, very soon. So thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Liz. It was great.
And
Thank you.
and to everybody else, thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Thanks for watching this episode of Electric Evolution. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons to stay connected with us. And if you're inspired by our journey towards a sustainable future and want to support our mission on a monthly basis, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Electric Evolution Podcast. Your support really helps us to bring the latest insights and discussions in the world of clean energy, electric vehicles, electric vehicle charging and sustainability to you. If a regular subscription isn't what you're looking for, you can always consider buying us a coffee. Just head over to www.buymeacoffee.com/Electric Evolution Podcast. Every cup helps us to keep the electric evolution moving forwards. And if you're curious about our work in the EV infrastructure sector at Full Circle Continuous Improvement, why not visit us at www.fullcircleci.co.uk to find out more. And if you want to send me a message, you can always email me on liz@fullcircleci.co.uk. And finally, please don't forget to share this podcast if it sparked your interest. And let's keep spreading the word about all of these topics that we're covering. So, until next time, see you soon. Bye!